Before we get into this, I would like to say if people haven't watched the show, please avoid the video for spoilers, and yeah, you've been very much warned. So recently, I rewatched The Flash Season 1. I actually finished watching it a few hours ago as of recording this, and honestly, it still holds up pretty well. It's the start of Barry Allen's journey as he becomes a superhero and some of the lessons he learns along the way. Whether it's how to use his powers responsibly or just how to help others. Either way, the show early on shows us he's very eager to try and do the right thing. Obviously, throughout the show's lifespan, we're gonna see more moments in which that is actually true, but for now we're just gonna stick with season 1. So let's get into how it begins. Obviously this is before he gets his powers, so yeah, he's not running around at super speed, unfortunately. We actually see the night where his mother was brutally murdered by the Reverse Flash. Obviously I don't want to give too much away, but eventually we learn that there are two speedsters running around his mother, who one is trying to kill and one is trying to protect, one being Reverse Flash, the other being the Flash. We cut to the present day where Barry is a CSI, he's late for work and he really needs to do his damn job. Later he goes to I assume it's a press conference where he goes to see the particle accelerator get turned on, although he ends up seeing that happen later in his CSI lab and while he's watching the news. And yeah, obviously it's raining outside. It is pretty rainy, and obviously the dark matter from the particle accelerator causes there to be a lightning bolt spawn above the glass in the lab, I guess, and basically Barry gets struck by lightning. Now obviously cut to 6 months later, and Barry basically realizes he's been unconscious and that he has powers, which is pretty epic. Dude has super speed. It causes him to both panic and also be excited at the same time. Anyway, this video is about the whole season, not the whole episode. Let's talk about the whole season. It is actually a great pilot season for the show, and it does lead into the rest of the brilliant story that the Flash has. This season obviously features the Flash's arch-enemy, Eobard Thawne, aka the Reverse Flash. Thawne is obviously the big bad of the season who plans on using Barry for his own selfish purposes. For most of this season, Barry doesn't know who Harrison Wells is, and obviously Harrison Wells is actually Eobard Thawne, the Reverse Flash. He's just using the identity Harrison Wells for very malicious reasons. Obviously the whole point of Barry's motivation this entire season has been to catch the Man in Yellow, which obviously is the Reverse Flash, but he's motivated to be able to run faster than him in order to be able to catch him and eventually get his dad out of prison. Henry Allen was obviously sent to prison for the murder of Nora Allen, obviously his wife and Barry's mother, and that's actually something that's motivated Barry his entire life. He wants to get his dad out of prison because he doesn't deserve to be there. We obviously cut to a point now where Barry discovers who Thawne actually is and possibly even his plan. Obviously cut to the final episode where we see Thawne trying to encourage Barry to travel through time to change the timeline, which realistically is something he shouldn't do, but luckily he just travels back in time anyway. But the other version of him in his house that night just tells him to stay there and do absolutely nothing. Then it's a very tearful moment where he goes to see his dying mother on the floor, talks to her, and she believes it's him, makes a comment about basically how they look related. Either way, she definitely dies and he definitely cries. And I mean, honestly, he wasn't the only one. He then travels back to the present, fights Thawne a bit, and Eddie commits suicide, erasing Thawne from existence. And Eddie obviously is Eobard's ancestor, so you know how time travel works, right? Please tell me you do. Then the Reverse Flash gets erased from existence and a singularity, which is basically a black hole for those of you who don't know, gets spawned in the sky. And yes, I used that word again, I really don't know why. And yeah, the season basically ends there without the black hole even closing. Basically puts us all on a cliffhanger for those of us who were watching at the time of release. I would also like to point out I wasn't one of those who watched at time of the release. I was late to the party. Now obviously I've spoken enough about what's happened in this season, so I just want to get on to what I think of the season. Now obviously for me I've probably watched it more times than I can count, but even watching it now I still think it's decent and with amazing characters and great actors who play their roles really well. We obviously have Grant Gustin, who we're lucky to have play as the Flash for this show, especially for 8 seasons long as well. We do have some brilliant villains. We have Captain Cold Weather Wizard, we literally have the Reverse Flash. Also, not to mention Gorilla Grodd, who appears towards the end of the season. I mean, it's purely CGI, but it's still pretty sick to see a character like that in the show. It's also worth mentioning the crossover between Arrow and Flash. Obviously Arrow had its own crossover episode, the Flash had its own as well, and honestly they were both pretty good. And I mean honestly, this show just makes me want super speed. I'm not gonna lie, I would like a trail of lightning following me as I run around at super speed, and honestly, that would just be really epic. Eventually, I will do more videos on the later seasons, because honestly, it just seems like a really good idea. I mean, honestly, I might even give the seasons a rating at the end of each video. And honestly, I might actually give this season a 7 out of 10. Yeah, thank you all very much for watching my review.